about provisional and the true complementary. I know there are questions of what do you mean by provisional. If you remind me, I will try to address with my limited understanding. So the initial verse, the great enlightened one realized the Dharma in tranquil contemplation. Contemplation must always be tranquil, because you want to realize the truth in the Dharma. And as I mentioned earlier, some time back, the worldly words are just inadequate to describe the truth. So why do you need to be tranquil? That's because you need to subdue the worldly mind. You cannot use the worldly mind to discern the truth in the Dharma with worldly words. So you're going to worldly mind or worldly words. So that's the reason why you need to be in tranquil contemplation to understand the Dharma. Ever since he sat in a place of enlightenment, his mind has been tranquil and still. And that's the state that the state of realization, that's the awakened state. So he vowed to deliver sentient beings so that they could also realize the path. So then, because this, basically the Buddha showed us the way to practice, to realization. So that's the state that we should emulate towards. But sentient beings' capabilities were down, and that's where the problem starts. Okay. So that's the way that we realized that the capabilities were down. So they could not be delivered with this Dharma. So it was hard for them to understand the Buddha's understanding and views. I mean, even until today, despite the Dharma is available, and I'm sure that you have talked to some people, common question they would always ask is, what makes you so sure that there is rebirth? What makes you so sure there's another life? And these questions are hard to answer, but obviously we are on the path because we believe in it. So there are also a number of books written about NDEs or near-death experiences, and this has been documented by some medical practitioners, even in the United States. But nevertheless, and that's a different topic of discussion, but I just wanted to demonstrate to you what are the challenges when you try to talk about Dharma or share Dharma with others. So if we can attain the great awakening and our nature through suchness can become one with the universe, and in that instant our state of mind will be of tranquil contemplation and become completely clear. You see, this tranquil state that one is in requires obviously a lot of training, a lot of discipline, and it's not easy. So I'm just sharing with you my experiences, and it takes a long time really, and it doesn't always come all the time, and the reason is because, you see, especially so for us as householders, we are all we're still living in the mundane world, and there's a lot of mundane worldly winds that continue to blow at us, and that makes it doubly challenging to be in the tranquil state. But nevertheless, we got to be really aware and be very mindful, aware of our inner self, very mindful of our outer self. Outer self means our behavior, our demeanor. So then our mind will be completely clear. You know, you are in a tranquil state when you're in a position that you are no longer disturbed, okay, by the worldly winds. I'll tell you a story of, since Sister Stephanie mentioned about Ajahn Chah. Ajahn Chah was giving a sermon to his disciples one day, and he was in a village. And a nearby village, there was obviously they were celebrating, or there was some event going on. And so there was a lot of noise coming from the village. And one of the disciples complained to, rather brought up to Ajahn Chah and said that the noise are disturbing us. And Ajahn Chah turned to the disciples and said, is the noise disturbing you, or are you disturbing the noise? You see, this is what it means to explain. You could reflect on what I just said. This is what I mean by a tranquil contemplation. Now, Ajahn Chah is obviously, as a forest monk, a revered teacher, and in the Theravada tradition, so it's a small vehicle. I'll come to a bit later on to my views about this. So Master related her experience when she bowed at the Buddha image. Obviously, during that time, it was in a small hut reciting, copying the Lotus Sutra. And she sensed the presence of Ananda. And some of you may have similar spiritual experiences, but that peace and free of state of mind can be said to be one of tranquil contemplation. And there's a feeling of incredible tranquility and clarity. And obviously, it's for us as Buddhist practitioners, that's our aspiration to be in that state, because that's a state of deep realization. So the Buddha Dharma teaches us to calm our minds. Calm our minds is calming our minds in the midst of turmoil, and that is what really what we need to be in practice. Because how can we practice kindness if we never meet unkind people? How can we practice tranquility if we never meet turmoil in our life? So in much the same way, when during the time of the Buddha, and how can the Buddha realize without understanding suffering? And that's what trigger is search for the answer to life. So when we realize that, and we realize that the oneness with the universe, and that is when the infinite wisdom is attained. So by being mindful, there will be a moment when our nature of true substance will suddenly break through our affliction to come together with external conditions. So that breakthrough moment is the moment that we realize that no external conditions that influencing us, that in possession of our mind, that give rise to the mental afflictions. So when you break through that, you realize the emptiness of the external conditions and the external or the false states of those conditions. And then you realize that you can engage internally in the practice of unconditioned Dharma. So the mind of cultivation, in this ecosystem of the world, how did things become so imbalanced? And obviously, there's a lot of collective karma that we have. We generate pollution and so on and so forth. And all this negative thought that arises can lead us to commit countless evils. And all these things are generated by just a thought. So we engage in spiritual practice by listening to the Dharma to inspire positive thoughts to arise in our minds. And also because we are in the Mahayana path, that we also bring along to inspire the minds of others as well. So we cannot by the wave of one, we change the mind of others. So the whole practice is really about the cultivation of the mind, and it's for us to be able to tame our mind, and therefore be able to then be in that state that we can be in calmness. But all these things we will meet when we do that. We will face a lot of hindrances. And that's what the Buddha realized, that that's what happens. And I shared also with you that when the Buddha attained enlightenment and realized that the whole truth, he realized that humans will not be able to understand the Dharma. And the Brahma king came down and pleaded to the Buddha to share the Dharma, and that's what he did. So, but he did that. He realized that the limited capabilities, and that's why he graduated to start off with the provisional teachings, which I'll come to later. So this, we have 5 hindrances and 3 obstructions. Now, I know there are 5 hindrances, but I treat them because the words they're used that I'm not very familiar with, but so I'm not sure when I'm right, but the 5 hindrances refers to the sensual pleasures, the ill will, the sloth or torpor that we have, the restlessness and the doubt that we have, right? So that will prevent us realizing the truth in the Dharma, whether it is a small vehicle, whether it is the middle vehicle, be able to discern the truth in those teachings. So, so it doesn't mean that one can understand very clearly the small vehicle and middle vehicle, but yet you can, yes, you can be obstructed by growing further on the big vehicle, because he thinks that, and most of the time, and people think that they already know everything, and that's where the issue is. So under 3 obstructions, and here I think this is what it means, refers to the affliction, the unwholesome action, and the karmic retribution, which is the karmic retribution of our life becomings that come to us, right? So, and all this unwholesome action, our body, speech, and our mind, and affliction, and all this coming from the habitual tendencies that we inherit in this lifetime. So we know we do have all these obstruction hindrances in front of us. So we need to chip off in this lifetime as much as possible, so that we can have clarity in our practice. So there's something the Buddha cannot help. So like I said, that the Buddha cannot just say, wait for the one with all the magical powers and transform everyone to become enlightened. And so the enlightenment is because no one can be able to change your mind except yourself. So they could not be delivered with this Dharma. And this Dharma meaning the Dharma, the full Dharma of the truth, the whole truth. So the sentient being capable is without, and it's hard for them to understand the Buddha's understanding and the views. So that like the elder, he dealt with children in skillful ways, although he was physically strong. Physically strong meaning that he personally was strong and able and capable to understand the full wisdom. There was no use in dealing with his children. I mean, when I was reading this line, I think it's the same thing, right? Like Sister Stephanie said, when I went into to do his charity work, and all his children were climbing all over her. And you know what? It's exactly what the Buddha envisaged. How can you, even though you're physically strong, are you going to grab all of them and going to use a cane and get them to behave? You can't do that. You see, and Dharma, Dharma cannot be forced upon a person. It has to be accepted. That's why in a few days ago, I mentioned to you all, it's not about the teachings which has been given to you. It's about the teaching that you have received, and that is important. Although he had fearlessness, he still could not directly teach the true Dharma. This is because sentient beings were foolish and could not be able to accept it. And that was, and on sentient beings, I mean, until today, this still happens. So the provisional and the true Dharma, the Tathagata has a powers of great wisdom, but did not use them. He applied his wisdom in contemplating. This is great Dharma. And sentient beings' capabilities are limited. So had to teach with skillful means. So meaning the applied skillful means is that he cannot teach the whole truth of the Dharma. He has to give part of the truth, which is easy to understand, the Dharma. So the Buddha used wisdom and skillful means to teach the 3 vehicles, wisdom and skillful means, and he explained with provisional and true teachings. I think it's important to note this, it's provisional and true. So it is not about giving a provisional teaching, which is untrue. So the provisional teaching and true teaching, I'll come to this, I'll come back to this. Let me finish the few lines first. If the Buddha only taught wisdom, that would be the true Dharma that only benefits the self. And because benefit the self, meaning that only the Buddha himself understands. The wisdom and skillful means used together show suitable teachings that are both true and provisional, and the manifestation of the provisional that arises from the true. So imagine that you have the universal truth with you. But the universal truth, just now imagine now you have to explain that to your child. And they will come and challenge you and all these things because we are not enlightened, we are not able to prove that. You see, in the same way, in the question was the same way, the Buddha realized the whole universal truth, but people needs proof. But how can that be proven to you when your mind cannot even understand? It's a chicken and the chicken and the egg. And so to explain, that's why, and this I explained to you some time back, and I say that truth cannot be taught. Truth can only, the truth which is not well learned and understood becomes a belief. A belief which is not thoroughly explained and understood becomes a myth. A myth which is not thoroughly explained and thoroughly understood becomes a superstition. So in this Dharma of the truth, to understand what the whole elephant is here, and not in a position to understand what the whole truth of the Dharma is. So applying wisdom was for his own benefit. He already completely understood the state and could maintain his own state. So he had the full wisdom. So explaining what the elephant is to everybody was not in a position to do that because the mind couldn't understand. So you notice if you, by the time when the Buddha, the Parinirvana, they were the gathering of the first congregation of the first Buddhist congregation, and there were 500 arahants over there. And you know what? If you learn some of the stories about them, every one of them has certain capabilities, whether it's sight, vision, hearing, spiritual power, so on and so forth. But all these things combined can only match the Buddhas. So each one of them have certain facets, certain power to understand that Dharma, because it's the universal truth. And how much can we understand? We even got problem understand the world, this world alone, let alone understand the sun, the moon, and the stars above. And we just like, so we have these limited capabilities. And the self-liberation, this one, but we are hearers and solitary realizes self-liberation is about, okay, we have to cultivate, it's all self-effort. But the difference is the self-liberation that must explain about hearers and the solid realizes is only liberate themselves and not others. But for us in the Mahayana path, we also seek to awaken others. And otherwise we cannot attain greatness. So, and this is and the Master explained that they are just trying to quickly escape the three realms of the sixth destiny, and they quickly escape. So it's like getting into a quick fix, if you like. But because we seek that quick route, and we then leave others behind, and therefore because of that, we are not in a position to understand the whole truth and attain that greatness, and the results become limited. And we will not be able to attain the great Dharma, and we won't have limited teachings. So, but nevertheless, the understanding is still the truth, is the truth, but it's only part of the truth. And that's where the differences are. So we understand the truth is like in the same way that we need to understand the diamond, how it shines. We only understand only two facets. Okay? We need to understand all the facets, so we then understand what the gem is. So, but to do this, we need to go through go through and not go against the minor practices. So that then, because each time a different practice that comes to us, it will help us to perfect ourselves. And this is why the Greek vehicle is about the Bodhisattva path, is about attaining the 6 perfections as part of our practice. So the lessons learned, if we go against the minor practices, we lack perfection and the results attained, and our search practice is not complete. In much the same way, if you got a gemstone, you only have one facet, they will not attract people. So we engage in spiritual practice by refraining from all evil, but do not do all good deeds. We are seeking quick attainment, and thus do not attain the body path of the great vehicle. So the Buddha when he gave the sermon and when he gave the teachings, and people like to hear about Amitabha Buddha, so he gave the Amitabha Sutra, he gave the Prajna Sutras, or the Wisdom Sutra, and expounded the Prajna teachings for them and everything that's empty in nature. And then Master Chen Yen said, and because he mentioned about Amitabha Sutra, then where is the Western Pure Land? It's the joy and peace in our hearts. This Western Pure Land is another subject of discussion, which I won't go into. But what the Buddha originally intended to teach was that it's a wondrous existence in emptiness, and emptiness in wondrous existence. This is not easy to understand. Okay, it's easy to say, wondrous existence in emptiness, and you need to understand in you and be in a practice of the unconditioned Dharma. Otherwise, it's hard for you to discern about this. So Bodhisattva takes the vehicle, the 6 parameters, seeking the teachings or transforming others in the vehicle. It's called the Buddha vehicle, and cutting off all our habitual tendencies, and we can attain Buddhahood. So on contemplation, this one a little bit long. Every morning I want to pick up this contemplation and share with you all. In very much the same way, I pick the ones which are very relevant to the teaching, and sometimes I refrain from drawing some of the others because I don't think it's a right condition yet. But let me share this with you. Quick fix is not for keeps, because wisdom does not arise. Which what Master is trying to say, right? Quick attainments. The path is for those who are patient, or those who are patient enough to be trained to be patient. One needs to be patient to learn and grow. Growth in consciousness is gradual because it is one of self-growth. Okay. No one can do that for you. On relationship, the journey beyond the mundane mind is not easy, but still this must be done. Be not like a feather floating in the worldly winds and not knowing where life will end. Know where life should end. I shared with you, was it yesterday or the day before? Know who you not know you what you should be, and know what you are. Life is for learning from one life to the next, always immersing in the conditions that you have created. If you find that the condition for your practice is tough this lifetime, so you learn to create that good condition for your next. While progress is gradual, there is so much to learn and so much to practice, yet so much to gain. Okay, Gan En brothers and sisters, thank you so much. I hope I answered some of your questions.
Gan En so much. Ajahn Chin. Yeah, wonderful, marvelous summary and sharing. Yeah.